How's it going, everybody? This is Christian with Liberty After Dark. I'm here once again to introduce the beginning of this Young Bucks part two, I guess you could call it. This episode is a lot less focused. We do a lot more conversations on topics like philosophy and stuff like that. A lot more laid back than the last one, not really structured. Lots of conversation with the comments in the live stream. So I hope you guys enjoy. Sorry again for the poor audio in this portion. I'm still on holidays, so I just couldn't come up with any better solution for recording the audio for this intro. So sorry about that. Hope you guys enjoy.
Oh man. So do you guys have anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything else that just really was just burning in your loins?
Yeah, my gonorrhea is really flaring up lately.
Yeah, that'll do it. I think it's more in like the shaft, less the loins, but I mean, I've never had it, so I think you'd be the
I thought I had it in fucking tech school.
Oh god. Is that really what you want to say on a live broadcast?
What happened?
Right. Well, I mean, because I didn't have it. Some chick hit me up that I was smashing up before I went into the Air Force. She was like, I think I have gonorrhea. I was like, what? What do you mean? And I go get tested, and they're like, no, you don't have gonorrhea. I'm like, I didn't think I did, but what the fuck? And then I text her back. I'm like, no, I'm fucking negative. Like, why are you... This is the only thing we've talked about since I've gone in. She's just like, I'm just like, go get yourself tested. Well, she got tested again, and she was negative. So she got a false positive and fucking freaked me out for no goddamn reason.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
At least
Would have
it's
been
not
worse if she didn't tell you and you had it, but hey.
Yeah, you would have
wrong.
You would have found out pretty quick from
you
what I've read. Yeah, there would have been no. You would definitely would have gone to see, hey doc, something's wrong. I don't know what, but it ain't right.
I'm pissing brown, doc. Help me.
Is that like one of the symptoms of gonorrhea? Your Boston comes out or something? Yeah.
Yeah. I can't pronounce my fucking eyes anymore, doc.
It's changing.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
All I crave is clam chowder and Fenway fucking Franks.
Hey, listen, at least she didn't hit you up with like, oh, I have chlamydia. Like that shit kills people. So.
Or she didn't hit me up like I'm pregnant. That's worse.
Like, that's worse than dying.
Killing that baby.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh. No, we don't have to go into that. I was gonna
Abortion.
say. Yeah, I was gonna say like, what do you guys think about the whole like Roe v. Wade? Like, oh no, they're gonna kill Roe v. Wade because evil Mary Sue is in Supreme Court.
I kind of doubt that's gonna happen, but
Same.
Yeah.
I think they kind of know the outcry will be ferocious.
Yeah.
I
A lot
agree.
of noise.
And it's
no
kind
results.
of been legal precedent for a while, so it's like, why would they do it now?
Well, that's the thing. I know we're going into a tangent, but I love when people bring up legal precedent because they're like, "Oh, well, there's legal precedent," and I was like, "Well, obviously, it's not a fucking
They can make
solved matter."
some new precedent.
Yeah, legal precedent is the worst way to make a decision I've ever fucking heard of in my life. It's like,
Slippery slope.
Should I buy a slave? It's like, well, this guy bought a slave, so I guess I will.
Guys, you have to now.
There's a precedent for it, so.
I mean, that's kind of a good point, though. Like, fucking, clearly the court's fucked up before in history. Like,
yeah, so don't get me wrong. I'm not
going to stand.
I'm not saying Roe v. Wade is an issue. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is legal precedent is logically unsound. Just saying like another court decided this is a horrible way to make a decision. Consistency, sure, right? But if you're consistently
at the end
wrong,
of the day, yeah, it's arbitrary at the end of the day. To some degree.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, you can have all the court opinions you want, but it's like, my opinion was swayed just enough because of these fancy words. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I would love to have a more objective law system in general that uses normalized language that can be easily interpreted from one person to a fucking another. But obviously that's too much. Obviously that's too much to ask for. So all
Get
that I would
AI lawyers, baby.
Hey, listen, man, when we're all fucking hooked up to the singularity collective consciousness, none of this will be an issue anymore. I'm
yeah,
convinced.
hive brain. Yeah, hive
Mhm.
brain logic.
Fuck yeah.
The hive brain still needs a pee break. So
Hive brain still
Okay.
needs a pee break. All right, well,
Okay.
here's what we'll do. You can go pee. We'll start the outro, and then when he gets back, he can say his goodbye portion. And I don't know, we can hang out or whatever.
Is there any
afterwards,
other topics you want to go through, or?
Not particularly. I think we pretty much hit everything. I was going to bring
Yeah.
up the whole, I don't know if you've seen this or not. I sent the article. There was the plot to overthrow the Electoral College results.
It's not going anywhere.
Political suicide, but
It will be interesting.
the start of a great dystopian novel. Let me tell you
Oh.
what.
Oh, this dystopian novel started a long time ago, my friend. I'll be right back.
All right, go for it. I guess I'll just sit here and chortle with the chat. I think everybody's gone. Nope, there's still a couple people here. They're just not talking in the chat. Well, people who are still here, it's great to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I'm actually a little buzzed. I mean, I figured I would be. This is my second bud. I was going to get 3, but then I was like, I got to drive tomorrow. And I really don't want to be like hungover while driving.
You're only on your second, you fucking pussy.
Dude, this thing is bigger than like 30 of your dicks. All right. I don't even want to hear it.
That's not even impressive.
I know. I should have said like
So
a billion.
I'm 5 Coronas with a tall boy big wave in.
This is like this
six.
is like the same liquid volume of 5 Coronas. Out of 2 of these. It's probably 4 out of 2 of these.
These are 12 ounces. Those are 16.
What does it say on here?
That's 1 1/3. You said it was 16 earlier.
No, I said I didn't know. Where the fuck, Budweiser? Tell me how much alcohol I'm drinking.
There's no way they can't list the amount. It's not at the bottom.
No. It says Anheuser-Busch Inc.
Check the back. Put the recycle info. Wow, this has to be a riveting podcast to be watching.
So
Thanks for sticking around, guys.
people are still here. They're just not talking in the chat. So they
Hey,
I mean-
give us a question, no matter how ridiculous and arbitrary.
Yeah, we'll
Nah.
answer
We'll
it.
answer it. Yeah.
one thing I've learned is that lurkers do not talk in chat. You could literally be like, I will give you a PS5
Oh.
right now if you type something in chat. And they would just say
Literally.
it's like a fucking religion. Like, I will not. It is against my views, my values. I am a lurker.
I'll have to go.
Oh yeah. Hey, lurkers, don't say anything.
Oh.
Now, see, all you're doing is reaffirming them. That's it. You're just giving them
They're
more
like,
power.
oh yeah, I won't.
Yeah. You're just enabling them. Oh no, Caleb. Shit. Oh, he says no thanks, I have a PC. He is still here. All right. Caleb, do you have any burning questions? This is my
Yeah, come on, Caleb. Hit us with some.
We got
'Cause-
you, Caleb.
We'll be wrapping up
Yeah.
here. Latest we'll go is another 20 minutes. So if you have any burning questions, bring them up now while we're here, while we have Derek's galaxy-sized brain in this Discord chat. He has to wear a hat to cover his massive fucking cranium.
You don't want to see me take it off. It's like when that guy from the X-Men takes off his glasses. Just
If you put the universe in a tube, you wouldn't want to put the universe in a tube. You wouldn't want to put it in a tube.
What do you think about the
Little
100% gold dollar? All of you?
I think it's.
late for
I
that.
mean, I think it's unattainable now,
Oh,
but
okay.
I think it's more.
Oh, he's talking about moving to the gold standard. Okay, so we're officially
Yeah.
we're outside of the projections, and now we're just talking opinions on monetary policy. So go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, funny enough, Caleb, I'm reading In the Fed right now, so it's very relative, relevant. I'm drunk, but
It's very relative.
Cheers.
Whether or not you should end the Fed is a very relative question.
But
All
Yeah, in my retarded monkey brain. Sorry, I just got here. Oh, no worries, dude. But yeah, I think at best it would limit the inflation caused by the Federal Reserve and not allow them to print money at a whim. Other than that, I'm not really sure I can give a solid opinion past that, to be honest.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did Nixon take us off the gold standard?
Yes, it was Richard Nixon.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
I'm not, like I said, or like Brian said, I'm not qualified to say enough on that, but I would probably guess that that's not going to change anytime soon, unless there's some drastic economic fallout. Like a global pandemic hitting or something.
Yeah, okay, so if we're talking about like what could be, what will be, stuff like that, that's one thing. If we're just talking about like our opinions on a gold standard, I think there are lots of merits to having we'll just call it what it is, a commodity-based currency, right? Because all currency is based off of scarcity to some extent, except for fiat. That's the one exception that we can think of. And even then, it does have a pseudo subconscious scarcity to us. Like, we don't have an infinite supply of it. We want more of it because there's only so much of it so that we can buy things, right? Now, as I'm sure you, as someone who's reading End the Fed right now, knows very well, that's not at all how it actually works from top down. But I personally, I've done a lot of exploring, and I'm not an economist, and I could be wrong on any of this, but I've yet to have someone challenge me on it because I do think it is kind of a fair position. But I've always kind of taken the perspective of, to whatever extent someone is willing to trade one item for X number of slips of paper, I'm willing to take their slips of paper for it. I'm gonna give 1 second for Derek to move, just because it's making a lot of noise.
I'm listening.
No, it's just making a lot of noise. You're good. No problem, dude. We're in the commentary portion, so. Also,
I apologize. Sorry, Caleb. I was gonna go try to find my dog, but then never mind.
Patrick Smith is here. Great guy, by the way. If someone is watching this and they aren't subscribed to his content, go subscribe to it right now because the dude's amazing. Does a lot of great work.
Is Economic and Ethics of Private Property a worthy read, Caleb?
Yeah, Caleb's
Who is the
well
author? Yeah. Can you put the author in too as well, Caleb?
Okay.
Please.
Yeah. So what I was.
And ethics of private.
Yeah. So basically, what I was getting at is that I've essentially equated. What's the best way of putting this? I think of fiat in terms of a barter system, right? And that if this slip of paper truly is valueless, then I think we can just go ahead and assume that its value is whatever people assume that it is. It may not have any inherent scarcity, but if people want something and there's a demand for it, and you can't just reach into the ground and pull out as much of it as you want, there's going to be some kind of barter that you can build around it. And all the currency is instead of exchanging goods for something, it is something that you can exchange goods for. You're just cutting out the middleman, basically. So instead of having to raise chickens to trade for clothes or whatever, you can raise chickens at your job, not have to do that at your home, and then buy whatever you want. And it doesn't matter if someone doesn't want your chickens because you got your labor dollars for your chicken farming activities. So I don't know. I guess you could say I have a pragmatic approach towards currency. I view crypto the same way. Crypto is forced scarcity. It has basically no inherent value at all. It's just lines of code. And not to go too far off on a tangent, but there's a very strong criticism that crypto isn't even really property because we could go way deep into that, but so if you're willing to exchange a Bitcoin for something, but not a US dollar, I think, I think we're grasping at straws at that point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of the Federal Reserve. I don't like fiat currencies. I'd rather we have something commodity based, but it's not my biggest issue. Not even close. So
is it true that Bitcoin was almost having like a revival recently?
it did. I mean, it is. I haven't been tracking it much. I have my money in other cryptos, but yeah, it got back to $20,000
Dang.
or very close to it. Very close to it.
Because they basically had like a falling out, right? Like the floor bottomed.
Have you guys talked
So to
about the
speak.
Alphabet Boys rating that company?
What company?
Bitcoin is the highest it's ever been. At least it was. Yeah, I know it broke the 20,000 mark at some point, or it got really fucking close to it. I don't remember which. I don't have my
So weird.
phone near me.
I wonder what like what affects it. Because I feel
Well-
like I heard they were really confident in its efficacy long term, and then all of a sudden it just crashed, and they're like, "Oh, there's no future for Bitcoin. If you had all that money, like it's lost."
I'm not a fan of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is just a giant money exchange. That's all it is. It's a giant US dollar exchange. It's like gambling. You put your money in, you bet how long you want to wait, and you come out. Nobody uses Bitcoin for actual commerce anymore, unless you're on the blackest of black markets, in which case they actually know because they've stopped using it because you can track Bitcoins now. That's the algorithm's been broken. Even if you use Bitcoin scrubbers and if you use, all these other wallet transfer mechanisms to keep Bitcoin as secure as possible, it's an old protocol. It's not secure. It's not fast, but oh yeah, I don't have donations set up. I just do this for fun. So I appreciate it though, Patrick, 100%. But, yeah, so like I was saying, I think that was pretty much my point though. If anybody wants to rebuttal off that, I don't know if I cut off like midway, but yeah, it's old tech. I would highly recommend looking into newer generation cryptocurrencies if you are someone who wants to invest. Again, like I said, there's some very compelling arguments that cryptocurrency isn't even property, but regardless, use it to your own discretion. So I think it's
Yeah,
great.
I'm
Do you
very
have like
unschooled.
Robinhood or?
Robinhood? No, I don't do
Yeah.
stock trading anymore either.
I do that a
used
little
to.
bit. Just it's kind of fun.
I
I don't really ball out with it, but it's like it's nice to see, like not nice, but it's interesting to see the fluctuations. Sort of.
I follow Robinhood.
I know
fails.
some people get addicted to it, but
I have Robinhood fails on Reddit. That's a beautiful thing to watch. Like, yeah, I put in $50,000. I have $6 now.
oh
my
fuck
God.
that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Um.
It's basically gambling.
Oh yeah, it's bad. But Brian, you were gonna say? Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm very unschooled on cryptocurrencies in general.
Yeah. And I feel like
Same.
I keep saying, oh, they might not be property. I feel like I should at least somewhat explain myself on that. I did a conversation recently on intellectual property, and basically the idea that crypto is a pattern, right? Patterns aren't scarce. Property requires scarcity. This is a very fundamental concept on any sort of definition of private property, right? Private property requires scarcity. Without it, there's no necessity for private property. If there's an infinite number of something, you can just reach into the air and grasp it. It doesn't matter whose it is, right? And that's
Almost
what
like fiat currency.
that's what a pattern is as well. And all cryptocurrency is a very specific pattern stored on some wherever they're stored. It depends on what exactly it is. But based off of that definition of requiring scarcity, if someone were to copy your cryptocurrencies, your coins, we'll say, and put them into a new wallet, it's not causing you any harm. You're not losing anything. You have no reduction in value to you personally. And all they've done is take your pattern and put it somewhere else, an identical copy of it. And that's where the fundamental argument that cryptocurrency might not, you can call it yours. That's fine. But it's a really hard case to make that, like, if someone copies it or if someone, maybe if they transfer it or take it from your wallet, you might have a claim there. But really, once you start getting into the whole, like, it's like a song, right? By the same definition, songs aren't property. You can't just say like, oh, I strummed the guitar like this, that's mine now. Like, that's so nebulous.
You can't claim a chord progression.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like half of the hits through history are the same exact chord progression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the videos of like
that's exactly what I'm referencing, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're gonna say, but I think I know what you're gonna say.
Well, it's like it was like the past 5 years top country song.
Oh, that too, but
and it was literally like they could line it up, and it was
Yeah.
like the same exact chords and notes being hit, just slightly
Yeah.
different.
yeah. There was something about like the last hits through like literally the last 60 years, like from the Beatles to Elvis to fucking Miley Cyrus. Like you could look at the same 4-chord progression, and apparently there's something that our brains just are like, that's that shit. Like, that's fucking nice.
Yeah.
That shit works.
And honestly,
Sorry, yeah,
another tangent
I think-
there, but
Yeah, but well, I guess a counter argument to like intellectual property having value and should be protected is like comedians guarding each other's jokes. Like Joe Rogan getting on stage and calling out what's his name? Fuck. Spanish guy.
Iglesias.
Yeah,
Or,
Gabriel Iglesias. Yeah. No, not Gabriel Iglesias.
No,
it was,
it was Garcia.
Garcia, yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Garcia.
No, not Jerry
No,
Garcia.
that's the guy from fucking. I'm sorry.
you guys will get it one of these days. George Lopez. I don't know. I'm thinking of another comedian.
I know. Who
Carlos
you're talking
Mencia.
about. Carlos Mencia.
Yeah, drunk brain got it out. But
not the dude from fucking Grateful Dead, no.
Yeah. But yeah, Carlos Mencia being called out for joke stealing, like the comedy community basically annexed him. I mean, he's still making money off his act. But
well, so man, I just want to address this comment real quick. Patrick said, I don't think he's getting our comments. Sorry, I thought I answered your comment earlier. But Tim has to go. It was great having you here. I know we're kind of wrapping up now anyways, but I'm sorry I didn't get your comment sooner. I just wanted to let him finish his thought. But yeah, so like I was saying, I think it's really important to keep in mind that there was a correction in that moment, right? Like the jokes were stolen. It's not like you can go back and unsteal the jokes, right? Like I guess he could sue nowadays, right? Like let's say you stole my jokes, right? Yeah. But the stealing of the jokes and making that public was super bad, right? Like that
makes you the pariah to begin with. Like,
yeah. And so Joe Rogan getting out there and being like, hey, this motherfucker steals jokes right there is in its way its own correction, right? So what do you want to do? Do you want to?
That's the free market of stand-up comedy, self-correcting.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna get ostracized if you do shit like that. The same way if you steal someone's fucking patent without being able to do it.
Yeah, or really anything like that, right? Like, I mean, like, so let's say some like little kid gets on YouTube and does, I don't know, pick Mariah Carey Christmas song, whatever that name of that song is that I can't remember right now, and they sing it on YouTube. Yeah, that one. I'll stop you there. That one.
You've heard the rest, okay?
Yeah, I've got it. But yeah, that song, if some little kid sings it, they're gonna get a copyright strike. If they're monetized, all of their funds are gonna go to the other person. And again, I find it very difficult to say that, oh, well, someone sat down and wrote this. And it's like, well, if I wanted to listen to the Mariah Carey version, I would have gone and listened to the fucking Mariah Carey version of the goddamn song. I wouldn't have looked up Toddler sings Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas,
Very untapped market, Mariah Carey covers. There you go.
Exactly.
Well,
not exactly a huge market, but.
Then it's kind of the weird juxtaposition of the YouTubers who have reaction content, where it's like directly using someone else's content.
The appeal of that is weird, but like everything from the thumbnails to the algorithms that YouTube has, like are just designed to get more clicks. You know.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, so if you want to look at it from the perspective of modern law, it's fair use because they're applying commentary, and commentary is just anything that adds any sort of substance to the original work. You can contest it and take it to court, but yeah, it's
All I want
You
for
know.
Christmas is you. Thank you, Caleb.
yeah. Didn't I say that earlier? Or okay, well,
You
regardless.
just said that song.
Well, I thought I corrected myself when I said it again, but it's fine. Yeah, you're right, Caleb. All I want for Christmas is you.
Basically, why she's raking in the big bucks to this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Pretty
every
much,
fucking
man.
shopping mall blasting that song.
I love how it's become a meme at this point. But yeah, it's IP is one of those things where it comes down to the fundamentals of it, right? Like, so someone who is in, well, I say I'm in software. I'm a student, right? But as someone whose like job is eventually going to be writing lines of code, like it was a really hard pill for me to swallow. The like, this is literally just patterns of ones and zeros that have zero scarcity, right? Like if I come up with something and I write out the code and I do all the work and then I publish it or whatever, and someone copies that, copying of it is not a so it comes into property rights exist to protect your personage because a property is an extension of your personage, and that I know is a claim into itself, and we can get into that if you want. But property being an extension of your personage, all property rights come from the perspective of protecting your personage. Like this fork is mine. There's no other fork like this. There are plenty of forks like this fork, but there are none of them in the immediate
But this
area.
one is mine.
Yeah, this fork is mine.
Without
right?
this fork, I am nothing. Without me, the fork is nothing.
If you take this fork from me, I have lost 1 penny of material value. It's something you can quantify, right? Like you can say, like, yeah, man, that sucks. You lost a penny's worth of fork, you know? But if someone copies your hard drive and pastes it somewhere else, all you can say is, well, I lost potential value. But what is potential, right? Like, what is that? That's not like, it's not a thing.
Doesn't that fall into intellectual property rights though? Like,
That's what I'm getting at, though. That's what we're talking
Right,
about
right.
here. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
It's-
it's almost impossible to quantitate.
yeah, exactly.
it's-
it's
All that we can,
difficult.
all that we can do is based objectively off of what we have now in existence. And I think that's where most of the compelling arguments that I've found against property or intellectual property rights come from. Why? And why I think the term intellectual property isn't good, because I don't think it qualifies as property because it lacks scarcity. Just call it ideas. That's what they are. Protected ideas. Because that's what, at the end of the day, that's what all intellectual property is. Star Wars, Apple software,
Yeah.
whatever. It's all
And even,
just
hell, even fucking Star Wars is a reiteration of like ancient tropes that have been carried over across cultures for millennia. Like,
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
You could argue George Lucas stole it from.
yeah, like
From,
but that's the
uh,
thing. Like, you can't claim like the hero narrative as like that's mine. Like that is
Yeah.
and there's all sorts of nuances. Like there's tropes, there's fucking themes that you can carry over into different genres, but then there's very literal things like, oh, Disney owns Star Wars. Like that's a whole nother legalistic world to dive into.
yeah. I don't even get me started on Disney. They have completely like if there was anything good about the IP as it existed at one point, it's gone now because of them. Like there's literally a Mickey Mouse clause. Like it exists to protect their IP. I mean, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. I know it's like midnight where you are, so if you're ready to wrap up, I'm as good as any time. I feel like we had a great little.
I'm
after-
having a good talk, yeah. If you want
Yeah.
to keep spitballing, I'm down. But yeah, whenever you want to wrap it up.
No, I mean I'm good. I just wanted to make sure because I know it's late there, but I think I'm gonna have to take a little commentator's pee break now because I've killed like 2 of
No
these
worries.
things. So you guys have to carry
All
the
right.
show. Don't
Okay,
say
I'll-
don't say anything that's gonna get me banned. And it's backwards. You're not going to be able to read it.
Way too late for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me read 2 comments from Caleb and then I'll go. Hold on. Oh, crap. Oh, one of them is I don't tune in often, but when I do, it's fun seeing what one of my comments does to Christian. And that's my first name, by the way, in case you didn't know that. And his other comment says, I have the original trilogy and the prequels on DVD, and that's all I need. I have them on Laserdisc, you scrub. Talk about Star Wars, I guess.
Hey, what
Yeah.
you gotta really do is mooch off someone's Disney Plus account.
Yeah. Honestly, did you watch the final episode of Mandalorian?
I did. I don't know if you want to
Dude.
spoil shit for Caleb, but
No, yeah.
fucking epic.
I guess I would say to Caleb because seems you're a purist on the original trilogy and the prequels.
if you haven't seen Mandalorian, highly recommend watching it.
Yeah, I would say that the newest films from Disney, probably besides Rogue One, I think Rogue One's really solid. But
Yeah.
I'd say the rest, you will live a happy life not seeing them. I
Solo
don't
is
think that-
pretty good, but like
Solo-
you don't need to see it. But it's like
Yeah,
it's entertaining and it's worth a watch, you know. Like,
Yeah,
if you like the Star Wars lore.
yeah, and I
almost
think
not the
Mandalorian adds a good story to the universe. I don't like the Disney
Yeah.
ones. Mandalorian isn't bad.
Mandalorian tied everything together really, really.
Still haven't watched it.
Oh, and did
It's
you hear
good, dude.
Did you hear about what they're announcing though? Like
Yeah, the
there's
Boba
gonna-
Fett's gonna have
there's
his
gonna be
own.
the Book of Boba gonna be a show. They're gonna have an Obi-Wan Kenobi show with Hayden Christensen playing Darth Vader, which
Ewan
nothing to
McGregor
wait
playing.
away. Yeah,
yeah.
as long as we got hello there. We'll be good.
Hello there,
And that's all it took.
Obi Jesus.
That's all it fucking took for them to completely fucking ruin the good thing that they had. One successful show. So Derek, I don't know if
Ten.
yeah, I guess. Derek, I don't know if you'll maybe you have. I don't want to assume. But Caleb asks, what libertarian / Austrian authors have you guys read? I know, well, Brian, you're reading And the Fed, which is Ron Paul.
Yeah.
It's like Babby's first libertarian book. But I've read pretty much everything Spooner's ever written. He's probably my favorite anarchist libertarian. He's abolitionist. Great guy. If you haven't read everything by him, you should. He's a super smart dude. I've read some Hoppe. He gets a little weird for my tastes. If you haven't read The Most Dangerous Superstition, I really, really like it, but I do think it's a little campy. It's a great first read for a lot of people, but I'm assuming you've read it already, Caleb. So I just want to answer his question. Sorry.
No worries. By Austrian, I mean Austrian economics.
Yeah. I figured.
Austrian.
not-
I'm trying to think of like a famous like Austrian economist, and I feel like there's a lot of names I should be thinking of.
Yeah, I
Hitler?
mean, well, a lot of them. He was definitely not an economist.
He was an Austrian painter, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wait,
if you-
is Ayn Rand? Is she? She's not Austrian. Is she?
She's not really an economist. She's just Austrian.
Yeah, more
Austrian
political
economists.
theorist.
Yeah. Austrian economists are it's just a term for like a school of economic
Yeah,
thought, right?
Yeah, like I should know this because I studied all of this in college, but I'm like forgetting all of it. Like Keynesian economics.
Yeah.
That's not the Austrian school, right? That's
No,
kind of like
It's like the
right?
exact opposite of the Austrian
Yeah, that's
school.
that's what I thought. That's what
Yeah.
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Hayek, Paul, Rothbard's a great example. Mises.
I've read
is
some.
another.
I've read Hayek. I think Paul. I don't. Maybe Rothbard. I don't know about the other two though.
Paul meaning Ron Paul or a different Paul?
Yeah. If you like Mud Huts, Hoppe is a great dude. He's definitely a return to monkey kind of guy. Yeah, Ayn Rand is more of a philosopher. I've read one book by her, The Virtue of Selfishness. I really, really enjoyed it. I recommend it. Yeah, I mean, I think I have some issues with it gets a new name every decade, it feels like, but we'll call it egoism for the sake of integrity to her ideas. But individualism, if you want to call it that. I have some issues with it, but I think the core tenets of it are very analytical, objective, and good. But I'm not exactly like a Randian or anything. You're not going to sit me around here like thumping my Atlas Shrugged at you or something, you know. I think she makes a lot of compelling arguments though. Like her idea that selfishness is what perpetuates virtue is, I think, a very hard pill for people to swallow, but I think makes a lot of sense if you just look at it from the perspective of like, no one does something for nothing. Like even Mary Magdalene, like was, you know, she did it because she got some kind of joy out of loving, you know, not because for the sake of being nice, you know. People don't donate to charity for no reason. It makes them feel good. They get a tax break. There's always some kind of personal motivation behind every good, benevolent decision that we make. And that's okay. And I think that's the important thing. People say it, when people hear that, they go, oh man, I don't like thinking that I'm selfish. And it's like, well, it's okay. It's okay to be, as long as you're doing
Everyone,
a good thing.
to some degree, is self-interested.
Yeah.
I think it's a natural human trait. Yeah.
It's disingenuous to think that you could, it's like something you can avoid, because I think it is a very natural process, and it's okay.
Have you guys heard of John Rawls? I think
Rawls.
his name was. He's I think it was a philosopher from like in the 20th century. And like, and I studied a little bit of them like in political science, and like he had this idea of the veil of ignorance, and it was like whether like if you had to create the ideal society and you had to do it behind a quote unquote veil of ignorance, like so you don't know your preconditions, you don't know your intelligence, your socioeconomic status, your disabilities, or conversely your intellectual capabilities or physical capabilities, how would you structure society? It's like a thought experiment kind of. But I was watching this video like the other day about like a libertarian perspective on that versus like I guess like an outsider's perspective on it. And it was kind of interesting to think about like your perspective on how society should be structured is going to be based off like your own preconditions or those that might affect your family. So
yeah. I mean, I could see like a self-preservation instinct being in there as well. Like,
right.
If I didn't know what my circumstances were going to be born into this world, you know, if I wasn't born into the body of a strong, handsome lad, you know, if I, you know, was like a geriatric crippled or something,
as well endowed, you know.
Yeah, definitely not that. All right, you know, let's just get that clear. I think
it's like an acorn on a beanbag.
Yeah, exactly. It's very generous of you. It's more like a pea on an acorn. But yeah. So regardless of that comment,
yeah, I have to dry my balls every time I pee. So
I think there's definitely like a certain amount of self-preservation that goes into that, a decision like that. Because I would be like, well, what if I'm born crippled, blind, and completely unable of, you know, supporting myself? Of course, I'm going to want a society that would cater to that, which is why I think, you know, it's difficult
it's tied to a lot of like the welfare state kind of thing. Like people, they use that in terms of like political philosophy to like explain someone's views, whether they're conservative or liberal. Like, oh, I might favor, you know, a welfare state here, but if I know I'm going to be like well off and I don't need this, I'm not going to want to subsidize someone else's education or someone else's healthcare or someone else's food stamps, et cetera, that kind of thing.
I think that's where the ethics come in, though. I think that's why I've focused so much on that. Like, I've tried to move away from, like, you know, I enjoy these segments where I just get to talk about my opinions on things. But I do think, like, at the end of the day, like, if I'm going to make a claim and I'm going to sit here and be like, I am right, you are wrong, it has to be based off of some, like, rigorous logic and ethics. And those things I don't think change based off of, like, my particular circumstances. You know, I don't I would like to think, and this could be wrong, but I would like to think if I had the same logical deduction process, regardless if I was in a worse circumstance than I am now or better, I would reach the same conclusion. I'm not like super well off. I live in a dingy apartment and I pay rent and a little bit else, I can't say I'm doing particularly great for myself, but I'm not like simping for the rich people. There's like a rationality to the decisions and the
Right.
beliefs that I hold. So that's, a
Yeah.
long way of
And
saying,
I respect that, yeah, because I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes, like in terms of politics, like a lot of times grifters on either end of the political spectrum will, like, they'll throw themselves towards whatever, like, confirms their own biases or gets them more money or both. Like,
yeah,
like, have you heard of like Dave Rubin, for example? Like,
Yeah.
I think he's a pretty good example of like I genuinely remember listening to like his first show after he quit like the Young Turks and like oh, this is interesting. Like, he's bringing a fresh like classical libertarian perspective to it, but then all of a sudden you find out he's taking money from the Koch brothers, and you've noticed like his rhetoric is shifting more towards like unabashedly pro-Trump, like that kind of thing. But
that was,
it's weird to see how
I
people
was-
change.
again, this is, I'm sorry, Brian, I haven't let you get a word in edgewise, so I will let you go
It's all
right
good.
after
I
this.
really haven't had anything to add so far. So
I used
Go.
to listen to an obnoxious amount of Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro until I literally couldn't stomach them anymore. And I used to really think that Dave was an actually good show. Like, he asked good questions and he made, like, he took a very neutral stance, I feel like, a lot of times, because he was either scared to say what he wanted to think.
And
'Cause-
that was the appeal of it too. Was
Yeah.
like he was like, oh, I'll engage anyone. Like, and that was like the Rogan-esque like type of vibe I was looking for. That I wanted someone who could, who could talk to people with different views. But then it just sort of devolved after that.
Yeah, it's like a switch got flipped. And then it was like we kind of like Donald Trump here. And it's like,
Money, money, money.
yeah, it sucks. I mean, I will say less so for Ben Shapiro. I think I just like the more
I think Ben believes what he believes. Like,
Yeah.
at least.
the more I got my own opinions and the less I listened to other people for their opinions, the less I liked Ben Shapiro. But
That's fair.
yeah.
his voice is honestly what off puts me. I genuinely can't listen to him. I don't disagree with a lot of his points, but
Like a
See-
gnat hovering.
Caleb, I feel like this is super, super relevant for especially modern Dave. Look, he says, I feel like Dave's whole thing is, look, I'm a gay conservative. Bet you've never met anyone like me. That's super relevant to now. Like, anytime anyone challenges him on being a conservative in any way, he's like, I'm gay. And I'm like, what does that have
Yep.
to do with
Like,
conservative
it's
politics?
fallback.
Yeah. It's like that hasn't been an
Yeah.
issue for like fucking
It's like,
6 years
it's like
now.
congrats, you defied like a stereotype, but that doesn't mean your fucking arguments are sound. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. I feel like Milo Yiannopoulos had a similar shtick.
yeah,
A lot more trolly, but
exactly. Yeah, I guess Stephen Crowder too, as Caleb was saying. It's like an example of, I think, someone who, like, they cater to their crowd and they know the money's there, so they stick with that.
I don't
And,
even,
and like, even Crowder had like a really interesting idea where he had that show, like, Change My Mind. Like, that was a really cool idea, but
It's a
even
good-
that would be like pretty selective about who he'd interview. It's like, oh, I took down some fucking
college.
liberal college freshman who's an intro to philosophy who knows fucking nothing. Like,
Yeah.
look at me. Like, wow.
Yeah, he picked up like one book on Locke, and
Yeah.
that's his entire knowledge of everything you believe. If that.
Exactly.
No, I don't even think Crowder's funny, honestly. And if my dad watches this, it's
He's
gonna
got
break.
diminishing returns, I think.
It's gonna break his heart, because I think he's not as much into it as he used to be. He used to send me clips all the time, and he's like, "Oh, this is hilarious," and I'm like,
He loves
Okay.
cross-dressing too.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, I don't have a problem with anything like that. Like, that can be funny.
No, I don't either. I'm just saying, like, hey, do your thing, but like,
Yeah.
it's almost like they go out of their way to like grift off the anti-SJW shit, and it's like, yeah, there's a genuine amount of people on the left too that like cringe at that and hate that too, but like both sides sort of just make the problem worse than it needs to be.
That's one thing that I've kind of noticed is that that's not as big of a like a war as it used to be anymore. Or maybe it's more like a
Yeah.
silent war now. Like, I think
Oh, there's some still very dedicated to it, but it's like it sort of burned itself out, like the energy it had.
yeah, because
Yeah,
I
I feel
remember
like it exploded. People picked their sides, and now it's like, all right, like we've seen this show before.
I've heard these same arguments and fucking go-to gotchas over and over. It's fucking old
Yeah.
now.
For real.
for a while there, it was like every week a new static image talking
Yeah.
person would come out and have their
Yeah.
scathing critique.
Here
Of-
comes the next Karen or the next fucking Jigglypuff from UMass or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like Kraut, those guys were like really big, and I watched some of his stuff back in the day. I don't know. I was always kind of like on the fringe of that. Like not the fringe, but I was on the outside looking in because it was always seemed like a stupid fight to me. But
I remember bringing up Christopher Hitchinson to you, Christian. Did you ever end up diving into him at all?
yeah, I watched some of his stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Because me, Derek, and our very, very good buddy Jack.
Oh yeah, you
But,
should have
like-
Jack on sometime. He'd be interesting.
Yeah, he would be. I would say he's, I don't know, to not speak for him, I guess. Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say he's a right-leaning centralist, I guess.
No,
He's
I think he leans a lot more left, but he completely
really.
dissociates from the cultural part of it. Like he's
Yeah.
very, very like uncompromisingly in favor of stuff like Medicare for all, for example. But then like that to him, that's like an issue where it's like, wow, he like sees the Democrats as being cowards, I think, for not supporting that. And then conversely, he also hates all like the pandering that people like Hillary and Biden do. And like so that's why he dissociates himself from like the label of a Democrat or something like that. But culturally, his views are different, I think, than like in terms of what its public policy views are.
That's fair. I think that's a different set of questions entirely, at least from my
It
perspective.
is, yeah, it is.
I mean, if you ask me, like the political question's really easy. No. But the social question gets a lot more nuanced because I really do think it's just interactions between human beings, and it should all just be based off of nuance and consent. But politics is, obviously a much murkier field than that when you're trying to dictate people's lives. So I could respect a position like that, 100%.
Because he was like Jack, for example. Like I think I can speak on his behalf a little bit. Like he was definitely a very pro Bernie guy, and like didn't want anything to do with the Democrats really. After it was like, okay, Bernie has no chance, because it's like to a lot of people, myself included, I think we looked at Bernie and we're like, this is a guy who speaks what he thinks, and he's fought for the same things for years, and like if he gets a chance to do his plans, it might do a lot of good for a lot of people. And so we're going to stand by him for that. But then there's all sorts of other shit that just gets involved in politics inevitably with like the culture war crap, and that turns a lot of people off.
Yeah, I was pro Bernie at the time too. And I feel like even now, I at least feel that Bernie is more real than a lot of these other people. The fact that he'll go on Joe Rogan and he'll go on Killer Mike's barbershop show.
Yeah.
That he's very much more willing to go out to the people and like be confronted if that may be what's going to happen. But at least he's real about his ideas, although I do disagree with them now.
Yeah. And that's fair. I think it's the general appeal, the broad appeal, certainly among young people that he had was like the anti-corruption, pro-populist, pro-listening to the average person type shit that the Democrats like pretend that they're the party of that. And I'm not saying a lot of them don't do a good job of it, but then there's others that do a terrible job of it and totally betray that ideal. And I think like the Republicans got to wrestle with that concept as well. I think, but for a lot of people, it was like we want an outsider, and not everyone's going to get what they want at the end of the day. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you make anyone happy with politics? Really? I mean,
that's the thing, though. Politics is inherently based on compromise, and like, if you're a purist, you're quite certainly never going to be happy unless you're some fascist in Italy or some shit in the fucking 30s.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's like you're not going to have your party running shit, and that's probably a good thing to be.
No, I mean, I get it. I get it. I mean, I feel like sometimes I act like I've been disassociated from politics for so long, but like, I mean, I voted in like the last 2 elections besides this last one. So it's not like it's even been that long, that I've kind of distanced myself from all of that. So I don't know. I feel like it's important to keep in mind that, again, like I kind of talked about earlier, it's most people who are engaged in this system genuinely believe that what they're doing is the right thing for the right reasons. And I think that's part of the hurdle, is that, it's not on a whim most of the time. And whether or not their arguments are flawed, or whether you believe what they believe is right or wrong, you have to convince them that what they think is correct and good, not just correct, good, like the right call, isn't. And again, like, and that's not even everybody's fight. In fact, I think most people would probably be better off just sticking to themselves and just, I'm not saying not to engage in political discourse. I think that's important for everybody to grow.
Yeah,
but
it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, and I get that. Like, for someone like me, like I studied politics in college. Like, I have a major in that, and like in high school, that was my strength. Like, I took AP History, AP Gov, all that shit. Like, that was something that I had the fortune of, one, like being inquisitive about and like understanding pretty well, but also like genuinely enjoying. But that is not the truth for the average American. Even people that are politically involved, like they fall into ideological patterns, and they get into their mode of thinking, and they don't really think about it deeper than that. And it's like it's a cycle of like, it's almost the same idea of like, you fucking get a like on Instagram, you get a little adrenaline boost, like, or dopamine boost, whatever. Like, people are looking for that over and over in politics.
Yeah, finding another person that agrees with you.
Oh yeah, and I feel like that needs to be discouraged. I think, because like it may feel great to get a zinger in, or like try to one up an argument, or destroy the libs, or fucking own the MAGA crowd. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really prove anything. It doesn't make your arguments any better. But
I know there's like a 10-minute delay in the chat or something on YouTube, which I'm sorry, guys, I couldn't figure out a fix for it anytime soon. So, but Patrick Smith here is like his shtick is being like a voluntarist anarchist commentator, and he's a super smart dude, but he would love like that sentiment right there. He calls himself a truth seeker, and he's the first person who I've ever heard say that I legitimately believe is like not just the label. Yeah. He like actually cares. Like, I don't care what it is, I just want the truth. And super, super cool thing about the dude. If you ever get the chance to watch any of his stuff, I'd highly recommend it. Super cool guy.
Does he have a podcast, or?
Yeah, he has a YouTube channel. It's called Disenthrall.
YouTube?
He also does, he does one that's more kind of focused towards like, well, I don't know what a good way to put it. It's called Anarchast. He inherited it from another person, but it's I'd say it's probably a little more niche. Disenthrall is, I think, a little more generally informative. It's more of like a good. He's just a super smart dude. But now that I've done enough of jerking him off, Caleb, I'm going to school for animal science, and I study economics, philosophy, politics in my free time. So my mind is very full.
Read his other 2 comments before that one too.
Oh, sorry, I missed them. Let me scroll up real quick. My ideas can be summed up as don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, and nobody should be punished for rightly exercising self-defense. And then trick question, get rid of politics, and I'm happy. I mean, I'd say your first comment is oversimplified, but I agree with the sentiment. A mutual friend of me and Brian, I was having a conversation with him a few weeks ago, and we kind of came to this conclusion that like all of the logic of everything that I was talking about, and that I know you agree with, Caleb, because I know you, but is sound, but it requires a certain not necessarily compliance, but it requires a certain cooperation from fellow man to not totally suck. And I can definitely agree with that. So I do think it is a little oversimplified just to say like, oh, I just want to leave everybody alone, because eventually bad actors will come to you. But yeah, no, I agree with the sentiment anyways. So
Yeah, not only the actors agreeing, but also everybody having faith that each other will stick to those agreements. You know?
well, that's part of the deal. It's like you don't have faith, right? Like the non-aggression principle exists as a guideline for you to not infringe on other people's rights. It's not a automatic trust everyone card. I would say if you trusted
True.
everyone right now, you were dumb. But especially
It's more so a way. It's more so like precondition that you should like try to treat people with. I think
yeah. So
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
the best part about the non-aggression principle is that until someone violates it, they're in compliance with it, right? So it's like a catch-22. They're like, "Oh, I don't consent to the non-aggression principle," and it's like, "Well, you're following it, so you know
So
you're not."
I
you're not-
haven't really like dived too deeply into like anarcho-capitalism and like the non-aggression principle, but like, would you say like the non-aggression principle is something that libertarians sort of conceptualize to contend with human nature and the role of government? Do you think that kind of like came later in terms of responding to government authority, or do you think that like actually fits into like natural rights and like the very origins of like how humans interact together?
Well, so I think it's important to note that I don't believe in natural rights. And I think it's important to say that I don't believe, because natural rights always, any sort of consistent definition for natural rights comes from some sort of bestowing by a creator, right? Like God gave you these rights. A right to a voluntarist who isn't a Christian would be any mutually reciprocal agreement between two people, right? That is your right. And until that right is violated, it is right. Because it doesn't matter if God bestowed on you the right to life if someone takes it from you. Obviously, it wasn't bestowed hard enough, right? So they're mutually reciprocal agreements, and I feel like we're in the realm of philosophy, so I feel like it's important that I get all of these nuanced things out of the way. But
Right.
the non-aggression principle is a response more so to the state of nature than it is to filling the role of a government, right? So Locke did a lot of, I'm sure you've read Locke, right?
Yeah. And I
So-
was gonna say I think Hobbes is almost more relevant to that.
Yeah, actually, you're right. That would probably be a better Hobbes.
But when you get into like property, then definitely Locke is where you want to go to.
Yeah. But even he talks about, though, in the absence of government, the state of nature, and a lot of his work does come from other people in regards to the state of nature. But it's always a good point for me to come to, because everybody's read Locke if they've read any literature, right?
Right. I think therefore I am. Yeah.
Yeah. And but that's really, and maybe someone will disagree with me on this, but the non-aggression principle, from what I've read and from what I understand, doesn't come from a need to facilitate a pseudo government. It's more to address the issues with state of nature beings, which is what we would be without any of these mutually reciprocal rights. It's why when someone violates your rights, we call them state of nature beings, because that's what they've returned to. They've returned to monkey. That's the third time I've said that meme this show. When someone if someone comes up to you and robs you, they've said, okay, I am willfully removing myself from this pact of being a civilized member of society. And unless they seek restitution and agree to reintegrate into society, they are a state of nature being and should be treated as such. I think that's a very logical, calculated way of approaching the situation. And that's where you get your things like self-defense and stuff like that. And it's like, well, oh, I have a right to life. And it's like, well, you did until you threatened mine. You know, there's a reciprocal nature to these things. Every action has a reaction. Yeah. Yeah. And it makes for infinite hypotheticals, which I have answered hundreds of, at least at this point, and an internally consistent system.
So on that note, do you like, and I guess like just taking it to like the eventuality of like history, like, do you think like the concept of the NAP changed when government coercion became a much more prominent thing, like when in agriculture became like a dominant force and you needed a government there, as opposed to like when you had hunters and gatherers and individual tribes and whatnot? Like, yeah, like Caleb's saying, these are tiresome hypotheticals, but like they definitely hinge very interestingly on the different facets of human nature and human organization, and like at a macro level.
Well, so the concept of the non-aggression principle is a newer one. If we're going like that far back to like the idea of agriculture being developed and the first
like,
governments,
it's probably an Enlightenment era production, right?
Post that, like we're talking like
post Enlightenment.
It wasn't codified until like Rothbard and all those guys got their hands on it. I think someone did it before them. I should know this. I'm sorry that I don't, but they were the first people to popularize it, right? Like that generation of Austrian economists, anarchists, libertarians, all those guys were the first people to popularize the non-aggression principle, because people were like, okay, well, what's your answer to government? And it's like, well, we have this. And the reason that the principle exists is because people needed a tight little package by which they could consume hundreds of years of thought on the state of nature and human rights. You know, I mean, and that's
you just you were born into a social contract, and the government you had a monopoly on violence, and that's just the way it was.
Yeah, exactly. And the non-aggression principle is something you can comply with or without that social contract existing, right? Oh my God, did Discord crash? Oh, Jesus. Oh. Are we back?
Yep,
yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay.
What happened?
Hold on. I think Discord crashed for a second there.
Oh.
I think, hold on.
Again, deep.
Yeah, no, we're good. I think we're back.
Well, I gotta go.
Piss break?
I gotta go. I gotta let the dog out, and I gotta call Veronica back.
All right.
She
well,
landed in Seattle.
You want to call it on that, I guess? Or...
We can let it go there. I could talk about this all day, but if you can't tell, I love this shit.
I should definitely come back. Honestly, I love doing shit like this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It'll have to be after the break. Obviously, I'm going to my folks' place tomorrow, so I'm not bringing any of my stuff with me. So, this should get posted either tonight or early tomorrow morning for the podcast. It's already on YouTube and stuff like that. So if you want to go back and watch it, you can. But yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Caleb said, well, this was fun. I'm glad you liked it and were involved in the chat. It was fun live streaming again. I haven't done this in a while. So
yeah. Yeah, I loved Caleb's commentary. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was nice to see.
Any last words, guys, before you
go? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if I don't see you guys before then.
Merry Christmas, Merry Happy. Yeah, be safe out there.
Yeah, Happy Hanukkah.
Keep being awesome.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Brian, Derek, it was fantastic having you both on. We should definitely do something like this again in the future.
Absolutely, man.
Maybe we could make it a foursome. Bring your buddy on.
Yeah,
that'd be sick.
Let's get Jack in there. Balance out the libertarian, progressive ideology there.
I definitely didn't want to. I definitely tried my hardest not to like gang up on you.
Yeah, I don't think we really got into like anything like too
No.
Like I'm sure we could have talked for hours about like the Green New Deal. I almost jumped in on that shit too, but like,
yeah, we could have.
I think we talked about that on the last podcast too. So like, yeah, there's no shortage of stuff for us to talk about, and I feel like despite the purported ideological differences, we always have very thought-provoking conversations and hilarious conversations. So
Yeah, I would say if nothing else,
again, man.
yeah, they're definitely meaningful conversations. If nothing else,
For
there's
sure.
always some kind of progression going on one way or another. So that's always good.
Absolutely.
Well, it was great having you guys on. If you guys are watching this show live or in the podcast format, make sure you like the Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter. I think I have a Twitter. I don't even know anymore. Like it, subscribe it, watch it, listen to it. And if you hated it, don't tell me because I might cry. Take it easy.